Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Where the Mind Wanders with Spoons and Joe. Say hi, Spoons.
Hey there.
And today, as we usually do, we're just going to let the mind wander and we're going to wing it, folks. Well, here's the secret. We literally wing it every single episode because every single episode, we're not sure about what to talk about. And usually, where we think we're going to go, we don't wind up anyway. So we're just gonna do that again because it seems to work for us. And um, we've had a couple new subscribers, and welcome to our new subscribers. And thank you for joining us. And God knows how you found us, but thank you that you're here. And um, yeah, um, this show for those who are new, we literally just let the mind wander. We never know what we're gonna completely talk about. We try to just talk from the heart and be authentic as we can and explain to the best of our ability through the limitation of language and the limitation of the perception of the viewers and their overall contextualization of things. And we hope that something sticks and that we are interpreted in a useful way. And if not, then so be it.
No.
And Spoons, do you want to start us off today?
Um, yeah, I have no idea what we're really going to talk about this episode. Like there's there's been a lot going on the last few weeks as far as stuff personally, but I don't know if I'm at a place to talk about any of it
Mm,
at this point. I don't know. It was really interesting to see some new subscribers pop up and pop some comments and things. And um, so that was kind of cool. I don't know. I still don't really understand a lot of the YouTube analytics and stuff. I go in
mm,
and I look at them all the time and I'm like, this is interesting. I'm seeing where certain search terms are kind of popping some things in. And I don't know. I'm sure we'll get better at labeling things and descriptions and such to sort of help people find what our content is. So
mhm.
I don't know. I was kind of thinking about that the other day. Like we're just labeling each episode and numbering them. So I don't know if at some point we want to go back and title them
Yeah, we
certain
can.
things.
It's not set in stone. That's the beauty of one beautiful thing about YouTube is you can go and add stuff to the descriptions. And I don't know. I used to have a YouTube channel that got close to 100 subscribers back in the day and had videos that had a few thousand views.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, actually, I don't think that much has really changed because I was kind of under the impression that YouTube, screws the little guy and you like small channels don't get promoted and whatnot. I don't think that's the case. I think they're
Yeah.
actually honest when they say because it's not even that they hide necessarily that they quote unquote shadow ban you, but they only shadow ban you if you keep violating their terms.
Right. Which makes
And
sense.
yeah, we don't seem to violate their terms. At this point in my life, there's nothing I can really say that I would disagree with their terms or say something that would be against their terms. Never say never, but I just don't see it at this point because I don't feel the need to be antagonistic anymore or just be weird
Yeah.
and speak weird things and like it's like and they seem to be um, still allowing you the opportunity.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, it's not to say there's probably not some degree of some of that stuff that goes on, but I don't I don't think it's to the degree that gets blown up.
no, I don't think so. Especially after we started this channel, I'm like, I don't think, my whole worldview has been shifting, especially pretty intensely since like last May.
Hmm.
It was for a long time, and then the whole pandemic thing happened, and I kind of spiraled a little for there for a while there before I grabbed the ledge again. Like, um, but yeah, the last my worldview has really changed as I let a lot of things go over the last months, and it slowly rearranges as I gain a little more clarity about myself and the world around me, and um, on and on and on. And one of the things I don't really hold any paranoia about the world anymore. Like that's seems to be completely gone. Like I kind of see the world for what it is now, and it's
Hmm.
not this giant conspiracy against us. Like it literally is the human ego, animal nature playing out collectively as I see it. Um,
Yeah.
and I see that because I see it going on inside myself, and then I recognize it going on in the world around me, and I'm like, well, everybody's collectively doing that. So actually, a lot of the weird stuff we see in the world makes a lot more sense than being paranoid about it. And
Yeah.
one of the paranoia things I noticed is everybody wants it's like a special thing in certain circles to be like, I got shadow banned. It's like maybe you do, but maybe I don't know. I saw a lot of patterns in certain circles where it's like for instance, porn. Like porn's well known that like when men get addicted to porn, they have to keep seeking like the like something more perverted and more perverted and more perverted to get off, so to speak. It's
Yeah.
something, and I've noticed that certain circles, it's the same thing. They get bored easily because they're seeking entertainment. They need a new crazier theory, a crazier theory, a crazier theory, or we were talking about the cult. I've seen that to be another one of these kind of things. I need something harder about the cult. I need something more cult. I need something more cult. Like it's like
Hmm.
there's something about these certain energies, these negative, quote unquote, negative energies in this world that they just suck you down, and like it's like almost like like the whole idea of the gateway drug, where you need something
Yeah.
harder to get high. Like weed won't cut it anymore. Now you got to start shooting heroin or something. Like it's like the same concept. It's like all these energies I've noticed at this point have the same nature to them. Um,
Mm.
where you need something harder and harder and harder. Anyway, I did kind of digress. My point being is I think you're kind of like thinking you're more important than you really are with the shadow banning thing. It's just your audience. They got bored of you and they're looking for it. They don't want to smoke your weed anymore. Like they want to go shoot heroin.
Yeah.
So it's I because I noticed a
Yeah.
lot of them jump ship and they go for the next crazier thing, and that becomes a fad, and then they get even crazy. Yeah, anyway, but
No, I definitely see that. What I heard while you were talking about that though is like it's distraction. Like if you're seeking that stuff for a distraction, then of course, yeah, you have to keep advancing it, advancing it, advancing it. It's kind of like well, you were talking about the pandemic stuff. I picked back up true crime when that happened. So it's like I started diving back into, all of those different stories. And I would say the last 6 months or more, I don't consume as much of that content. I still have some podcasts and stuff I'm paying attention to, but not like I was. I was true crime, watching all these different trials that were taking place, the last couple of years, and just really following a lot of that stuff intensely. Um, and I sit and think about it now, and I'm like, why? Why? What was so like consuming about? I mean, it's interesting, like especially some of the law questions that were brought up in some of those trials. Um, they're interesting. Just like why that thing? Why focus so much time, energy, and attention onto it? I don't know. Kind of get lost.
hmm. Well, part of me wonders, at least in my case, and I don't know if it's maybe the same for you or not. I'm not putting words in your mouth, or I don't know, but I can speak from my experience. the whole pandemic thing, I was pretty level-headed that first month. I was kind of like, okay, there's this super flu or whatever they're going on about, and okay, 2 weeks to flatten the curve or whatever it was, and I'm like, and then that got extended, and I'm like, okay, it's getting extended, and at this point, I know some people, and they seem to be all right, and yeah, I don't know, like this is getting kind of weird, and but for me, it sparked kind of fear again, that I
Hmm.
had thought I got out of, and to a degree I was getting out of, and that came about. And then part of this little Hintergedanke, as the Germans call it, this little dot in the back of your mind, popped up, and I'm like, is this the whole new world order that they were talking about? Because this is really crazy. Like, what's going on? Like, because no one seems to be that sick around me who's allegedly got it. Everybody seems to be under mass hysteria. And is this what is going on? And what did I do? It's the same way I picked up smoking again. Um, I watched a David Icke video of him talking about it. And the next thing I knew, I was drugged right back into that world again and back into that
Hmm.
energy. And back into theorizing and formulating opinions upon other people's opinions on other people's opinions on other people's opinions on other people's opinions. And if you think I have an opinion about anything I say, call me out on the comments specifically, and I'll see if you want, if I'm coming from a context of opinion. But these were opinions, 100% opinions. And it drugged me into absolute paranoia and fear and thinking the world is doomed. And even when I would say, "Oh well, no, it's not doomed," now I'm gonna seek out secret information, true information, which was still coming out of paranoia, just suppressed paranoia, trying to escape
Yeah.
the fear. So I would go for a higher energy, a pride of thinking I know stuff, and
Hmm.
I had to unravel all that over the last 6 months to come to this conclusion of, call it, greater clarity, to which I speak of. And uh and it was literally I threw myself back into hell and had to climb out. And to which I talk from experience that, hey, maybe you want to look inside yourself to see what motivates you to get into some of this stuff. Because it's
Hmm.
not the seeking of truth. It's the seeking of validation and escapism and entertainment and coming out of suppressed fear, and which causes paranoia, which is the
Yeah.
foundation of a lot of that world, if not completely.
Yeah.
And uh yeah, it's the same thing happened to me when I started smoking again. I was like, oh, I can have one cigarette. I quit for 6 years. I can have one cigarette, and ever since, it's been like 2 years now. I'm smoking, um, and it's just, it's like, once it's got its hooks in you, it's hard to get out. Like,
Hmm.
um, and that's the nature of these addictions and lower energies, even if you don't think they're lower energies, because you're not seeing where they're coming out of, because it's an essence that they're coming out of. All the structure that you're building upon it is coming out of an overall energy and essence that is mostly suppressed within yourself, and you're unaware of what is going on, and you're just um, trying to seek a higher energy of the animal brain to escape the lower ones. At the end of the day, is it becomes like this ball of yarn of different
Hmm.
things tied together that are holding everything together, to which you are formulating your overall context of life in the world. And um, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I, I don't know. I think like true crime, conspiracy theories, small doses, probably fine. Like if you're using it strictly for entertainment or thought experiments sort of stuff, probably not that big of a deal.
Yeah, true
But
crime's a little
to
different. Well, didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think true crime's a little different than conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory is like total paranoia. True crime is trying. It depends on the context, depends on the person, their intention, but there is kind of an element of studying psychology and sociology and trying to figure out how the mind works and that kind of deal when it comes to true crime. Like criminology is actually, or criminal psychology is actually very interesting and science based. Like it's trying to hold to a certain standard of truth. Um,
yeah,
yeah, but they're not to say that there's not a lot of people that are seeking it, like to juice fear, so to speak. But
right. Well, and I don't know. I think about that from time to time. Like, what is the draw? What is the draw about it? And part of it is the psychology. Like, I want to sort of understand how do you get there? How do you get there? And then I don't know. I think I think nowadays I'm just like uninterested in that particular thing as much. I don't know. Like I want to help people and I want to help understand where other people come from, but there's certain paths with that now I'm just not really as interested in trying to understand how they got there as much. So I don't know. Yeah, because there was like a couple of cases that I had sent you like a while back that I thought at some point I'll want to talk about these, but even those, um, I'm not sure that I'll be that interested in talking about them. They're supposed to come to trial this summer, and if things go as they're scheduled, the last I looked, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it would be interesting to dive in and see um, some of that stuff, and then maybe it's not. I don't know.
I found studying criminal psychology very interested. For those who don't know, like I didn't really know what to do with myself when I was younger, so I thought I was going to go into a career of law enforcement, and I really, really was interested in like detective work or like FBI profiling of serial killers and mass murderers and stuff like that. I really read all the books back then, and it's like like not using a language for a while, like you forget a lot of the words, and you're not as fluent as you were back when you were using it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's many years I was like really into like John Douglas, who was like the real life like in Silence of the Lambs, the older man that was Clarice's boss. It was basically him that the story was based off of, the real life one of that guy who started like the criminal profiling unit for the FBI to catch serial killers, because serial killers are really hard to catch. Um, because they randomly kill. Like detective work, it's pretty easy. Detectives usually, you always go. It's pretty most kill people who are killed by their husband or wife or girlfriend, boyfriend. That's the number one person to go to. The next ones to go to are the close immediate family, like the mother's, father's, brothers, sisters, cousins. Then you go to friends. Then you go to acquaintances, colleagues, whatever. Then criminals, like you get killed in a muggery, or somebody mugged you, or robbery or whatever, or like a crime, like a crime by a criminal. It's actually quite
Mm-hmm.
rare statistically. Most murders are committed by, like, the closer the person is to you, the more likely is they killed you.
Yeah.
But when it came to serial killers, it was like almost impossible because it was just so random. Like, because no one knew who these people were. There's no connection most of the time. Well, it usually turns out that the first victim they had a sort of quasi connection with. They knew each other at the very least in a very um, um, in a way. But after that, after they killed their first victim, usually it's like they don't even know these people. Like, so when a detective goes into like a homicide detective or whatever, like they're completely baffled. They're like they don't know what to do. Like it's like there's like no way to figure out who this person that killed, because there's like it's just so random. Like
Mhm.
and so they came up with FBI, the FBI, which they actually did I think a Netflix series based off of John Douglas's books. That was pretty good. They did like 2 seasons. Sandra and I actually watched that. It wasn't bad, but it was actually pretty close to the book too, because I'd read all his books. Um, anyway, they went into the prisons to serial killers and mass murderers and sociopaths. They like interviewed all these people in prison, and they started seeing certain patterns, and they came up with this criminal profiling, um,
Mhm.
and they started utilizing it, and it's like the only tool you have to catch like serial crimes, because it's like I said, it's so random. It's like you don't have any leads. Like it's you just hope they screw up, like they leave some DNA behind, and hope to God they
Mhm.
had their fingerprints in the system for something else randomly or whatever, or DNA or whatever. But it's like um, really hard. So they basically developed this abstract science of certain patterns they saw, and it's the highest rate of success they have to catch those type of people now.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. So one of the ones, like I had mentioned to you, that I wanted at some point to talk about, and I don't know that I don't think I ever sent you enough stuff to like actually look into it, but the Brian Kohberger stuff.
mm,
His trial is going to be coming up this summer. And before it took, I think, a month before they made an arrest in that. It's basically a thing that happened in Idaho on a college, just off of a college campus. There was a house that this person went into, or whomever. A person went into this house and they killed 4 people, and it was brutal. uh, um, it took them a month to figure out who to arrest for it. And whenever they arrested this person, they somehow obtained DNA, which there's a lot of questions how the DNA was obtained, um, to tie him back to these crimes. And so for me, it's interesting, one, because I was watching for that month of time before they arrested somebody. There's this podcast, I think it's called The Interview Room, or maybe it's The Interrogation Room. It's something along those lines. And they had profilers on there, and they were talking about who it would be. They went over the profile of who would be a possibility for this particular crime. And then they also had on the person who helped pull together how they do the DNA stuff from like the ancestry. They don't say that it came from like ancestry or any of those 23andMe or whatever. They don't really tell you where they got this other information from. Um, so that's going to be like a legal question
mm,
with this trial, if it's allowed to come in. And so the last week I've been watching a little bit of those arguments in court about whether or not the DNA stuff can come in, because they feel like it's fruit of the poisonous tree. Because I don't know, there's a lot of questions being brought up, and listening to some of the lawyers that I've listened to talk about it, if they allow that to go forward, it could actually change. Um, it could actually make some pretty strange changes, it sounds like, because if they are able to access that stuff from those type of databases for your DNA, then what's to say they can't go to the hospital and access your DNA information if they allow that first little ramp to get torn down on that stuff.
Mm,
It's just that there's a lot of interesting questions raised with that. So it's not only just about the particular crime and how brutal and rare you actually see something like that in the news
mm.
um, to that degree, but there's just all of this other stuff about it too.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting. But oh yeah, I wonder. It doesn't sound like they did anything illegal to get like unless like ancestry. I don't know if they do or not. That'd be a question like ancestry.com. I actually did ancestry.com, so they have my DNA. I don't care. The army already
uh-huh.
had my DNA. The police have my DNA. I gave my DNA a long time ago, so I don't give a shit if ancestry.com has it. But
Yeah,
but like do they give like a privacy thing that they're not going to disclose it? If they didn't, they didn't. And you
yeah.
voluntarily gave your DNA, so
Well, here's the thing.
mm,
I don't think I don't think his DNA was submitted to that database. It was a family member's DNA.
mm,
And how they obtained the family member's DNA, that's where some of that information is being blacked out from the public
mm,
in these procedural trials or whatever you call their hearings and stuff before the trial to see what's going to be allowed into evidence or what.
mm,
There's some dodginess about was the garbage on the curb that they collected, or did they go and obtain it in a way that wasn't actually legal? So we don't know that information.
mm.
So there's a couple of different points where it's questionable.
Yeah, and it's just weird. But I think that comes in a sense almost out of that whole paranoia I was talking about. Everybody's afraid they're gonna have your DNA. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Technically speaking, you don't have any privacy anyway from a multiple levels. Forget just the physical, biological level, and even in consciousness, you don't have privacy technically. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then again, it's like they come out of this paranoia and then they're defending it, and it's like, all right, they had to get this guy off the street somehow, like, like, and that it's like you everybody always cares more about the rights of the guy who butchered four people. The thing is, I don't even know. You mentioned the case to me before, but I don't even know the details other than what you
Yeah,
just said right now.
exactly. Yeah, we never
But
talked further
yeah,
about it.
yeah, because I don't really follow any of that. Ever since I decided not to go into police work, I just don't bother myself with that world. I know it exists, and I don't think other people have been exposed to it enough to take it serious because they've only seen it on TV. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not real to them. But there are some quote unquote bad apples that you really do not want out in the general population, that cannot be rehabilitated. The only thing you can do is lock them up and isolate them from the rest of the population. And you think things are bad now, like because people say that like a lot of the people like in U.S. has like the highest amount of like people in prison or whatnot. I don't remember what the exact percent is, but it's like yeah, well, I 99.99% of those people in there really belong in there. Like you don't want them in the general population. You think the world's bad as it is right now, or imagine if you didn't put them in there. Because literally these people that you lock up, they can't be rehabilitated. They're coming out of very call it demonic energy. And
Mm-hmm.
if you lock them up for 25 years after they raped and killed somebody, the first thing they do in the first 24, 48 hours they're out is they rape and kill somebody again. Like, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing you can do about that, like other than lock them away from the rest of us. Like, and a lot of that world is not real to people because they've, like I said, they've only been exposed to it on TV. They've never had experience with it. Like, um, you really don't shouldn't be out there out of your paranoia defending them, in my opinion, because that's really going to carry some bad karma for you if you get finally do get your way and get some of these people out and you're worried about defending their rights
Mhm.
rather than the four people they butchered, which could have been your family just as easily, and
Yeah.
or you. So um yeah, but I don't know with the whole
Yeah, I mean,
DNA thing.
I'm not like really one way or the other because who knows what the actual evidence is. They've been pretty tight-lipped on it, which is probably a good thing.
Mm.
Maybe they have more than, what's been released, but it's
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know.
that's 101. You don't release stuff to the public
Hmm.
because the public's insane. Like they literally will false witnesses will come out of the woodwork by the hundreds, if not thousands, especially the higher it is in the media. Like you really don't like some of the people and that motivates some of the people in the population that are not even necessarily criminal are just insane in their own rights that can
Hmm.
mess things up and muddy the waters and stuff like that. So you don't want information released to the public because then that the police stations will be swarmed with people trying to get attention. Like um,
Yeah.
it's you want to keep it as pure as possible, and that is part of it's withholding a lot of information from the public to your best of your ability. If you
Hmm.
um,
Yeah. I don't know. I suppose like if you're looking at it from like things that came out about him. Uh, so he was a criminology student. Um,
a lot of them are.
yeah, which you know his professors were kind of surprised by that because he was like a TA and the whole bit. I don't know. I don't know how close he was to like being done with his stuff. So pretty close, it sounded like, and I don't know. It just makes you wonder how does it switch because he was in the process of being vetted for certain work with police.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know if he got turned down for that work or if it was like he needed to finish some more of his stuff before he could be like considered for it or something. But just
Yeah,
a lot of interesting stuff.
that's very
About,
common amongst for instance, like serial killers, a lot of them tried to become cops or to work in the criminology. Um, Most of the time, they either failed the psych test or the thing about these types of people as well is they're not very motivated either. Like they have there's like this test like it's famous in psychology where they take a bunch of kids and they give them a marshmallow and they say, okay, if you don't eat this marshmallow for you sit here and you just look at it for an hour, we'll give you two marshmallows. And like I don't remember like a high percentage, it's like 80% or something like that. I don't know, don't quote me, but it's high. It's the majority will eat the marshmallow. But it won't wait for the second marshmallow, which explains a lot about society in general in certain energy fields if you study like the scale of consciousness or something like that. But and then some of them literally will eat the marshmallow in the first second. Like, and a lot of one thing characteristic about people who serial kill or criminals in general is they have very low impulse control, and that
mm-hmm.
carries throughout all of their life. So they don't have the oomph to completely jump through all the hoops to get to where they wanted to be. So most of them
Yeah.
drop out, or some will fail the psych test straight up because they're nuts, obsolete. If you're, yeah, um, yeah, serial killing is very grotesque. It's very, it's a sexual dysfunction on top of psychopathy. Like, but anyway,
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, a lot of them try to become cops in the past. It's like very consistent, very not all of them, but a very common pattern. And
Mm-hmm.
they or try to work with the cops in some way. A lot of them would hang out in cop bars with the cops, you know, because police have their like their own bar hangouts. And these types would go in there, and like a lot of the times it surprised the local police when they finally captured this guy. They're like, you know, this guy used to be like hang out in the bar, and we would talk to him all the time, and like stuff like that, because they want to be surrounded by like cops and crime and stuff like that. People in that criminal justice career. And
Mm-hmm.
also, a lot of them will buy like old police cars, like from auctions and stuff like that, and drive around the Crown Victorias. And a lot of good number of them were arrested in the past for impersonating a police officer. So there's like this common like theme about that. Actually, it's like a very common
Yeah.
trait.
Um, I don't know, man. Yeah. So like I said, I still keep up with a little bit of stuff, but it's not to the degree it was years ago, and I don't know. There's not as much fascination with it, I suppose. It's like, well, what motivates somebody to do something so heinous? And I don't really want to be able to comprehend that, I suppose, when it comes down to it.
I found it very educational down the line because the thing is that what attracts us to it to the degree is we all have that same energies inside of us, just not it just they don't take the wheel the way they do with them. But we all
Yeah.
have those same energies that so like those same energies that would motivate a Charles Manson or a Ted Bundy or whatever, or just your chain snatcher in the ghetto. Like it's like we all have those same kind of animal natures within us. They
Mm-hmm.
just have because we're not in such a low energy field, so to speak. They don't take the wheel, but
Mm-hmm.
they are in us and they arise within us, and we project them onto others. And part of the whole true crime thing, or people like I think you or I who are very attracted to like criminal psychology and stuff like that, is we could I think on levels for I can speak for myself, I can recognize that stuff within myself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just I just recognize I have I can hold off, not eat that marshmallow. Like it's like, and then eventually it's like you transcend it all together. Like, but it's part of mm, life is a gift. Um, is that you have all this stuff you could because of the world, because of our biology and our humanness and the world around us. We have a lot. We have the perfect opportunity to work on ourselves. Um, and the external world is just a reflection of our internal world. So once you understand your internal world, you get a better clarity of your external world. So um, I think it is very fruitful to understand the lower aspects of this world and not deny them, because a lot of people just deny it. Um, a lot of denial going out there, or a lot of misinformation about it going out there, or casting blame and guilt upon it. But it's um, on a sense like I want these people locked up in prison because I don't want them hurting my family or my woman or my or you know they can't be rehabilitated. Like it's almost impossible. But you kind of feel for them in a sense because one, they're completely taken over by these negative energies, call them demonic or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
on a biological standpoint, they're like their brain and their nervous system's completely messed up. They can't help it in a sense. That's not to say make apologize for it. It's just it's the same
Mm-hmm.
concept of as like a Komodo dragon or a wild tiger or something like that. It's like you think just because we're all humanoid and we have we look the same as humans that we're all the same. That is not the case. Like
Yeah.
um, and no one
Yeah.
knows what to do about these people and perhaps they have to learn through many lifetimes or whatever, or experiencing realms of hell or however it works, um, to transcend that and not let it be their consciousness. But in the meantime, there's nothing the rest of us can do but lock them up. So I don't like it kind of rubs the wrong way when you're defending their rights because you're paranoid about your DNA is going to be given away or whatever. Like it's like no one cares about your stupid DNA. Like, no one cares about it. Don't go butchering 4 people and you probably will never, they'll never care about you. So like,
Mhm.
um, I don't know what to say, like because it's these cases are very hard to solve, and these people really need to be off the streets, like
Mhm.
because it's like
I don't
estimated.
know.
Yeah. Anyway, Ed.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like the whole DNA stuff, like I guess there's a lot of legal questions around some of that stuff. I mean, because you're constantly shedding DNA, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So how much is enough? How much is enough to know? Because if you don't find it on the bodies and all of the stuff, you find one small teeny sample, which is all they've talked about on a knife sheath, on the button snap of a knife sheath. That's the only DNA that's been spoken about. So do you hang your whole entire thing on this one small thing? Maybe. Maybe that's fair. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there.
well, especially if he had not, I don't know the case, but if he just was just some random guy and why is his DNA there? So at that point, I don't care how small it is. It's like,
It's a
like
it's a
why are you
college
there? Like it's
it's a college party
yeah.
house.
Uh,
There's tons of DNA
okay.
there. There's tons of DNA there. It's a place where I think they just had like a passcode on the door, and most people seem to know what the passcode was to get in and just enter this place.
Well, is that like
Uh,
the only hard evidence, or did it have like quote unquote
that's the
circumstantial evidence? Like,
They have some circumstantial like cell phone sort of stuff. Maybe him driving past uh, the place. It's all very. They never mention any fingerprints. They never mention any other DNA. It's very scant. So who knows? Like maybe when it goes to trial, there's more evidence that
yeah,
actually connects him to it.
yeah,
But um, it's a little strange to me, you know. And of course, watching it way back, like 2 years ago, I suppose it's been like 2 years since it happened, or maybe a little more than that at this point. Um, there's a lot of conspiracies.
yeah. There always is because just
There's
paranoia.
there's
Like,
other people
yeah,
that they felt like maybe they fit the bill better. This person, there's all sorts of that other stuff out there, and who knows? I don't know. I'm glad I'm
yeah,
not. I'm glad I'm not a person that gets put on juries. So I don't
yeah,
want to have to try to figure this shit out.
yeah. Well, it's usually not the cream of the crop that goes to the juries. The jury is like you have an option in the States. Like here in Germany, there is no juries. You go before a judge. Um, in the States, you have the option to go before a judge or a jury. It's your
Mm-hmm.
choice. Like, and the jury, you just as a defendant, you're better having a jury because even if you're guilty, like you can persuade a jury because they get onto a jury, both the prosecutor and the defending attorney have to like mutually agree, which means they don't really get the cream of the crop of intelligence that gets onto the jury. Um, they literally are looking for the most the defense attorney is looking for the most persuadable people like that are going to not weigh evidence but be emotional.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you get a Johnny Cochran up there that just it's good at the gift the gab and they can literally convince a jury like and the prosecutor is just trying to not to get a complete terror. Like so it's like trying to find this balance but yeah, juries the odds of you making the jury just is probably low anyway. So
Oh, there's no odds. I'm not registered to vote, so I will never be on a jury.
I don't remember the show. I think it was Becker. It was that show about that doctor or whatever with what's his Ted Danson. And he got called for jury duty, and every time he got before the attorneys, immediately they would just dismiss him. They're like, "Oh, you're a doctor. That's dismissed." Like, and then he stopped saying he was a doctor, and then they saw him reading a book, and he got dismissed. He's like, "So I can't even read a book because it's a different jury." Like, even somebody who's smart enough
Uh,
to read a book, like, so
it's sad. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, it's just you're better off as the defense than the judge because if you're guilty, the judge is going to see it immediately and you're screwed. Like um, but yeah, here in Germany, you can't don't even have that option. Like you go before a judge. But they're a lot more lenient on crime here in Germany than they are in the States. Like if
Mhm.
you serial kill a bunch of people, you'll get locked up for 20 years and probably get out. Like, like
Yeah.
and
Oh,
the German prison cells as well are not like the American prisons. Like they're luxurious. Like anyway.
yeah. Well, that actually made me think of another thing that's kind of an interesting question. So I don't know exactly what happened. This would be like a death penalty case um, in Idaho, and I don't know what happened previously in their executions, but I think the chemical executions are like not valid anymore. So they're going through this process of bringing back firing squads in
What?
Idaho for yeah for execution. So it's like
Oh yeah, it's Mormon. Yeah. Well,
so it's there's a lot of weird things around this particular case that I don't know. I keep getting drawn back to because they're interesting questions to see what happens, I suppose. But yeah.
hmm. Yeah, yeah, they're holding a lot of you're right in your my estimation as well. They're probably holding a lot of stuff back and you won't see it until the trial. So
Yeah, I mean, I hope they do have enough evidence to make it really convincing. Oh, and there is another thing. Like there was a one of the roommates in the house that was there, and he didn't kill her, and she saw a portion of she saw him, but he had on like a mask, and so all she saw was like eyes. So there's that whole thing too. So do you really need, which who knows? I mean, I can't even imagine how traumatic that particular thing. I don't even really like to think about it. But there was things last year that were happening where his lawyers were trying to pull her in to have to be questioned while he was there, and that all got nixed, which I was glad because I'm like nobody should have to go through that um, after the fact. So maybe she won't have to come in and trial. Maybe they have enough. But
yeah.
yeah, there's just a lot of stuff there. On a totally different note, I was telling you earlier about a podcast I sort of stumbled on this week that I've been watching several different. I don't even know how long it's been on. Some of the ones are like from a year ago that I've been watching, but they're Neal Brennan, who is a comedian. Um, he wrote for Chappelle back when it was the Chappelle show or whatever. He has this podcast called Blocks, and so he's bringing on the ones that I've watched. He's brought on mostly comedians, but there's been actors as well that I've watched, and basically they talk about different blocks in their life, and kind of you know, get really open and a little bit vulnerable about how they're, uh, you know, doing sort of that internal work. It's interesting, especially with comedians, because I feel like a lot of people that are drawn to that, they have a lot of internal turmoil that they're
Mm,
trying to work out.
yeah.
So I don't know, it's been a really cool podcast though. I posted one of the episodes in my little thing on Telegram. It was the one he did with Jerry Seinfeld, and I just thought it was super interesting just to kind of hear him talk about, his life journey a bit. He's such an interesting dude.
Yeah. Seinfeld is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a really intelligent guy. He does a clean act and it's hilarious. Like
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, I see comedy as, these days is yeah, a lot of comedians are attracted to it or there's two types of comedies. There's the quote unquote punching down comedian or the archetype of a troll like or um the ones who compare and contrast to validate falsehood. And then there's the comedians, which I would call Jerry Seinfeld's in that category, where you compare the truth to the absurd and you make it funny. Like
Mm-hmm.
in that sense, it's just like the same story of like Lucifer knowing God's like powers. It's like I find that like comedy in its truest form is divine, and
Mm-hmm.
but it can be used the other way, twisted to make falsehood and the perverse true um, by skill of the comedian. But I find Jerry Seinfeld to be in that other category where you can see he can do a clean act. It's
Mm-hmm.
hilarious. He's very intelligent in his observations, and he's famous for the Seinfeld show, which I still find pretty funny.
Yeah.
um, but his stand-up acts are amazing, and he's from or I don't know if he's from Long Island, but he lives on Long Island where I'm from. Um, um,
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah, he was talking about using meditation just for rest and stuff in his work, and you know just talking about how it's not a spiritual practice for him, and that he saw the benefits of it. So I don't know, it's really cool to kind of hear people talk about different tools and how they use them and how they work for them. It's
yeah,
nice to get
totally.
that.
Didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
I was just saying it was nice. It's nice to hear another perspective on those things.
Yeah, I
So,
totally get it too. That's how I use yoga. It's strictly like
mhm,
physical to me. Like, yeah, there's no spiritual element for at all for me when it comes to that. But I find it a very useful tool to keep the body flexible and to warm up for a workout or a nice cool down from a workout. Or
mhm,
yeah, it's a very useful thing in that sense. And as for meditation, yeah, meditation is all about intention. If you intend to use it for relaxation, that's where as far as it'll get you. If you intend to use it for inspiring creativity, that's as far as it'll get you. If you
mhm,
it could go all the way up to discovering the self or the presence of God or whatever enlightenment. It can be used totally dependent on your intention or your contextualization of it of how you're using this single point in the mind, and it gets as far it take you as far as your intention. Like,
mhm.
so
Yeah,
so I totally get that and respect that at using meditation for relaxation because it does work for that. And I use yoga for strictly materialistic reasons too.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. It's interesting. Hmm. I think what else I've kind of wandered into this last week. Um, those are those are kind of the main ones, I suppose, as far as like random topics. I mean, the other thing, I don't know, I haven't really been doing a lot of work. I've been sort of thinking some different things about my online business stuff that I launched last October, um, with the Reiki practice. And I'm trying to sort of figure out how I want to kind of move forward with that stuff, but there's still more, I guess, question marks at this point with that. Um, I think where I'm at with it is I still don't know how to talk about a lot of these concepts. And especially like with people that have no idea what Reiki is. So I'm still trying to figure out how that works.
Hmm.
And I guess my biggest revelation in the last week is I have to stop being in the ego about it and trying to figure out how I'm going to communicate it and give that over to God and let God communicate that for me. Um, because true to form, I falling back on this old pattern of the egoic. I'm going to push myself toward this particular goal, and I'm not making much progress, and it's because it's all pointed this particular way, and I'm not um, just not quite where I need to be on it. Um, and I don't know how to really necessarily break that pattern with work stuff, or or with anything I do or focus on because it's interesting. Like I guess the fact that I catch myself in the pattern is
Hmm.
enough for right now. And that
Yeah.
I notice it and I see I've worked this last week on some particular blocks that um, came up with that to try to shift things because I don't ever want that practice to be anything really about the ego because it is really wanting to connect with people and seeing how I can help them. But sometimes when you get focused on, um, well, I think that's just anything. When I get really focused in on something, I lose sight of the bigger picture. And I don't know. It's new territory for me, I suppose. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll keep surrendering it until I do get it figured out, right?
Yeah. What else can you do?
Mm, that's about it.
Mm.
I think that's the other thing is I tend to do this. I have to figure it out on my own sort of thing with some of this stuff. And then that's not actually the case. Um, I have plenty of people that are resources for me to like reach out and talk to about any of this stuff. And I don't know. I've already made a little bit of progress, I guess, this week in talking with some different people that are less familiar with it and explaining some basic stuff. So, step by step. Yeah, I guess I'm out of topics. Uh,
And this mind is blank, or for lack of a better term.
right? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Dead.
I was just gonna say there are other things that come to mind, but they're not none of them I want to really talk about. So.
Mm, I really have nothing on this line. Um, yeah, I have my own stuff that I'm doing. Um, but I almost feel like it's redundant to keep talking about it. Joe's doing
Hmm.
this, quote unquote, Joe's doing the same thing as he was doing last month. But yeah, to really I've noticed that because I'm mostly in subtracting and looking at myself internally and um I don't really consume content almost at all. And
Hmm.
I might watch some like a TV series. I've been watching some German TV series with Sandra lately, but other than that, yeah, I don't really consume anything. Like
Hmm.
I read a little before bed sometimes. Um, Usually one of my favorite books. I just reread the same books. But it's like, yeah, I don't have it. So there's not much to talk about. It would come off very boring to the audience. That's why I like the mind wanders and just speak whatever comes. Because I have no idea what it's about to come out of my mouth in the next word. It's literally just flowing, flowing, flowing. Um,
Hmm.
so all
No.
right. You have anything else, or I think we have our hour plus. So
Yeah, I think we're good.
all right. All right, guys. So thank you for joining us for another episode of Where the Mind Wanders with Spoons and Joe. You can catch us at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, where we premiere every Monday. The following day, usually Tuesday, we have it up on our Telegram channel as well. If Telegram is your preferred platform, eventually we'll get up onto other platforms whenever I feel motivated to do so. Um, and yeah, I guess until next time. Take care, and I hope you got your fill. And